the tube, the small screen. Call it what you like, but there's no denying the immense impact television has had on people's lives and on American society. It has provided a window on the world for millions of people since the 1940s. What a technological breakthrough. Just about anything the eye could see could be brought to the television screen. 1947 marked the first time a World Series was televised. Suddenly, you didn't have to be at the stadium to see a ball cross the strike zone. But television's popularity really exploded in the 1950s, when the country was enjoying an era of peace, prosperity, and progress. Black and white models were mass-produced on American assembly lines to satisfy the high demand. In 1954, color television sets began to appear in America's living rooms, and by the end of the decade, a whopping 87% of U.S. households had a TV set. Newspaper sales began dropping dramatically, and interest in radio waned as more and more Americans turned to television for news of the world. And there was early evidence of the medium's power. Look at the first ever televised presidential debate in 1960 between Vice President Richard M. Nixon and Senator John F. Kennedy. Before the debates, most polls showed Kennedy trailing Nixon, but the senator from Massachusetts moved ahead of his opponent soon after the debates and went on to win the election. What happened? Well, it's simple. To many voters, Kennedy just looked more presidential. Nixon, by comparison, looked sweaty and nervous. 9 years later, when a U.S. astronaut first walked on the moon, 600 million people around the world tuned in to witness the event. It was another sign of the vast reach of television. A global community watched history unfold. Soon after, the medium showed another potential to raise awareness. Case in point, the Vietnam War. When Americans began to see footage of dead U.S. soldiers on a nightly basis, the nation witnessed from their living rooms the horrors of war. Newspapers had reported news of the battles, but as the old saying goes, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Throughout its short history, TV has graphically brought important events right into our homes, often while they're occurring. It's a smorgasbord of sights and sounds, and sometimes of emotions.
Flight final. Go ahead. RSO reports vehicle exploded.
In 1986, the nation was thrown into shock by the sudden and tragic loss of the Space Shuttle Challenger and its astronauts. You didn't need to be at the launch site in Florida that day to feel the weight of the catastrophe. And you didn't need to be in New York City or Washington, D.C. on September 11, 2001 to experience the heartache and suffering caused by a wave of terrorist attacks. Television made every member of the audience an eyewitness to these tragic events as they unfolded. The images and the gut-wrenching emotions associated with them may never be forgotten. In this way, television breaks down the barriers of distance and becomes an extension of our senses. While it's still rewarding to open up a newspaper or turn on the radio, Americans rely more on their TVs and appear to have an insatiable appetite for what's on. Today, the average person watches up to 4 hours of TV each day. Of course, it's up to each individual to decide what's worth watching and what's in good taste. With so many channels and programs to pick from, it's not always an easy choice. Perhaps the TV journalist Edward R. Murrow summed it up best when he described television this way. This instrument can teach, he said. It can illuminate, yes, and it can even inspire. But it can do so only to the extent that humans are determined to use it to those ends. Otherwise, it is nothing but wires and lights in a box.